Why was everyone ignoring her at the briefing table? She sat there, hands folded, eyes steady, watching the blur of voices circling the room like restless birds. Men and women spoke over each other, commanders pointing at maps, analysts pushing dossiers forward. But no one looked at her. No one asked her what she thought. She didn't speak. She never did in these rooms. Her silence was deliberate. It had always been. Because silence let her listen deeper than the rest. Because silence carried storms they couldn't see. The map on the wall flickered with lines and grids, red zones, blue marks, a cluster of buildings circled in black ink, the target. They were planning an insertion into a village at the edge of a valley scarred by years of conflict. Intelligence suggested a high-value figure was hiding there, someone orchestrating attacks that left soldiers in coffins and children without fathers. The mission required stealth, precision, control. And control was something she had, even when words failed her. One of the younger officers made a joke, something about snipers being cowards who fought from a distance. Laughter rippled around the table. Her jaw tightened, but she didn't react. The silence in her stayed still, an ocean's calm before storm. No one here knew the cost of her stillness. Not yet. Her commander glanced at her finally, as though remembering she existed. He didn't ask for her opinion. He didn't have to. Her orders had already been sealed in silence. Overwatch, advance position, first in, last out. That was her place, always at the edge of things. She stood when the meeting broke. Others stretched, bantered, some bragged about what they'd do once this was over. She slipped past them quietly. She didn't join their chatter. She never had. But there was something she hadn't told them. Not yet. Out on the tarmac, the night carried a bitter wind. Helicopter blades thundered in rhythm, kicking dust into spirals. Soldiers checked their gear, rifles slung, eyes scanning each other with unspoken nerves. She walked among them like a shadow, helmet tucked under her arm. No one asked if she was ready. They didn't need to. Her presence was the answer. Still, a weight pressed against her chest, invisible to them all. Beneath the armor, beneath the layers of discipline, she carried a photo folded tight inside her vest pocket. A face, a memory, a reminder of why she fought. She never let anyone see it. They wouldn't understand. They'd call it weakness. The crew chief signaled and they climbed aboard. The roar of the rotors drowned thought, turning words into meaningless vibration. She strapped in, rifle across her lap, eyes fixed on the dark horizon. The silence inside her grew louder. She remembered the first time she had killed a man, the first shot that changed her forever. She had been younger, too young, crouched on rubble with a borrowed rifle, finger trembling on the trigger. The world had slowed, sound collapsing into a tunnel of breath and heartbeat. She pulled. The man fell. Everyone congratulated her. She didn't feel it. She only felt empty. Now, years later, that emptiness had grown into something heavier, something deeper, but she carried it like armor. The helicopter banked, dipping into the valley. Shadows of ruined buildings stretched across the ground like scars. The team leader raised his voice over comms, laying out final orders. They move through the village in formation, secure the compound, extract the target. Her role was clear: climb, cover, protect. She would see them all before they ever saw her. The helicopter touched down with a jolt. Soldiers poured out, boots crunching gravel. She was the last to step off, the wind of the blades tugging at her gear. The valley swallowed them with silence. She moved separately, peeling away toward the outskirts. Her boots found soft mud, her breath steady. Every motion rehearsed, every step measured. She knew how to vanish into the terrain, how to become part of the shadows. Above, the night sky loomed endless. No stars here, only clouds thick as smoke. As she climbed a broken hillside, her radio crackled with the team's voices. Orders, movements, nervous jokes. She barely listened. Her mind filtered only what mattered: distances, positions, possible threats. Halfway up, she paused. Her fingers brushed the photo hidden in her vest. She didn't take it out. She just needed to feel it was still there. It gave her something silence couldn't. It gave her purpose. A distant bark of a dog echoed. She froze. The sound carried too long, too sharp. Dogs meant watchers. She lowered herself into the dirt, listening. A faint glimmer moved in the far corner of the village, a flashlight sweeping slowly. She stayed still, heartbeat slowing until it matched the rhythm of the earth. The patrol passed. She moved again. Reaching the rooftop of a half-collapsed building, she set her rifle down, adjusted her scope, and scanned the valley. Shapes emerged, her team moving cautiously between walls. The compound lay ahead, its gates sealed, lights faintly glowing behind boarded windows. She exhaled, settling into her role. Minutes stretched. Her silence became the mission's shield. She scanned, listened, calculated angles. Every breath became a choice, every pause a possibility. Then she saw it, movement. Not near the compound, behind her team. Shadows flanking, slipping through alleys with purpose, armed, waiting for the right moment to strike. Her finger rested against the trigger. She could end it now, take the first shot, save them. But her commander's words echoed from earlier. Do not engage unless necessary. We need silence. Was this necessary, or was her silence more valuable than her fire? Her heartbeat drummed in her ears. She thought of the photo in her pocket. She thought of the first man she killed, how his eyes had closed as if into sleep. She squeezed. The shot cracked like thunder in the valley. The echo rolled, bouncing off walls. One man dropped, the others scattered. Shouts erupted over comms. Her team hit the ground, spinning, searching. Contact rear, a soldier shouted. She fired again. Another shadow fell, chaos exploded. And in the middle of it, her silence broke. For a moment, it wasn't her mission she was fighting for. It was something else, something older, something buried in the storms beneath her calm. The firefight didn't last long. Her precision ended it quickly. When it was over, the valley returned to quiet. Only the echo of her rifle lingered, fading like memory. Her team pressed forward, shaken but alive. They didn't know she had seen the threat first. They didn't know the storm she had unleashed to protect them. She remained above them, invisible again. Her silence reclaimed her. But inside, something had shifted. The ocean within her was no longer calm. And though no one asked, she wondered if they could feel it too, the weight of storms they couldn't see. She should have felt relief after saving them. But instead, the silence inside her carried guilt. Why had she fired so quickly? Why hadn't she waited for confirmation, for orders, for certainty? She told herself it was necessary. That hesitation would have meant death for her team. Still, the storm inside her refused to quiet. Down below, the squad moved on, unaware of her hesitation, her choice. They advanced on the compound like shadows, rifles raised, boots deliberate. The valley air seemed thicker now, as if her rifle shots had awakened the land itself. Over comms, her commander's voice barked, "Maintain discipline. We're not ghosts anymore. Stay sharp." His tone was tight-clipped, not anger, fear. She adjusted her scope, scanning rooftops, doorways, windows. Each shadow became a question, each silence a trap waiting to spring. Then she noticed something. A figure in the second-story window of the compound, watching, not moving, just watching. Through her scope, she saw him clearly. A boy, no older than 12. He didn't hold a weapon. His hands rested on the sill. His eyes, wide and unblinking, met hers through the glass as if he knew she was there. Her finger twitched on the trigger. One call and she could remove the threat. But what if it wasn't a threat? What if it was just a boy trapped in the wrong place at the wrong time? The silence in her chest roared. She remembered another face. Another boy, years ago, the one she hadn't been able to save. Her vision blurred for a heartbeat. She blinked hard, forcing clarity. The child vanished from the window, gone. She whispered under her breath, words no one could hear through the comms. "Stay inside, don't come out." Her team breached the compound seconds later. The crack of charges shattered the night. A door burst inward, shouts, boots pounding, then the chaos of a house becoming a battlefield. She kept overwatch, jaw locked, eyes sharp, but the storm beneath her calm surged with every noise she couldn't control. Minutes passed like hours, gunfire, shouts, then silence again. "Compound secure," the commander's voice finally reported, moving to extract target. She exhaled slowly, relief fragile and fleeting. But it wasn't over, she knew it. Something about the stillness in the valley felt wrong, like a breath being held too long. The radio crackled again, this time softer. A soldier's voice, nervous. "Ma'am, we found him." Not the commander, someone else. She didn't recognize the voice. Before she could question it, movement caught her eye. A flash of light beyond the compound walls. Not her team's flashlights, something else. Signaling. Her chest tightened, an ambush. She switched channels, eyes on possible movement north perimeter. Her voice was low, steady, controlled. There was a pause, then the commander's reply. "Copy, can you confirm?" She hesitated. The shadows moved again, just enough to betray their presence. Armed men slipping closer, circling like wolves. She didn't wait this time. Her rifle spoke. The shot ripped through the night. One man fell. The others scattered, opening fire. Bullets shredded walls, sending sparks into the dark. Her team erupted inside, shouting, returning fire from windows. The compound turned into a fortress under siege. She kept shooting, every round placed with cold precision. But for every enemy that dropped, more seemed to rise from the valley's dark edges. The radio buzzed with overlapping voices. "We're pinned. North wall taking heavy fire. Where's support?" There was no support. They were alone. Her scope swept the chaos. Then she saw him, a tall figure commanding the ambush from the ridge, the one she had come here for, the target. And for a breath, the silence inside her cleared. This was the man responsible for everything, the deaths, the fear, the endless cycle of loss. The man whose capture or death could change the course of the war. She steadied her aim. Inhale, exhale, silence. Her finger pulled. The shot never landed. A flash blinded her, a second muzzle, hidden in the ridge, firing back. The round struck inches from her head, chipping stone into her cheek. She dropped, heart hammering, ears ringing. The storm inside her raged. She had missed her chance. Over comms, her commander barked orders. "We need extraction now. This compound won't hold." She pressed her face into the dirt, forcing her breath to steady. She couldn't afford to lose focus. Not now. But then she heard it faint, almost drowned by gunfire. A voice. A child's cry. Her stomach turned. The boy, the one in the window. She lifted her head, scanning. Through broken glass, she caught a glimpse, small arms clinging to a stair railing as soldiers rushed past him, shouting. His mouth opened in a silent scream, terror carved into his young face. Her hand trembled on the rifle. This wasn't supposed to happen. Children weren't supposed to be part of this. Her mind split. Duty screamed at her to focus on the ridge, the target, the fight, but her heart pulled her gaze back to the boy. That photo in her vest burned against her skin. She could almost feel it cutting through the fabric. Her silence broke again, but not with a shot, with a whisper. Not again. She abandoned her post. Sliding down rubble, boots tearing into mud, she moved toward the compound like a shadow breaking free. Bullets whipped past. Shouts rose. She didn't care. The storm had chosen its path. Her team saw her only briefly as she slipped inside the compound. "Where the hell is she going?" someone yelled. The commander's voice snapped over comms. "Get back in position." She didn't reply. Her silence carried her forward. Inside, smoke curled in the dim hallways, shattered doors, bullet holes, Blood smeared along walls. Soldiers moved past her, shouting, clearing rooms. No one stopped her. She found him near the stairs, small and trembling, pressed against the wall. His eyes widened when he saw her, not in recognition but in fear. She lowered her rifle, slowly, carefully, one gloved hand raised, palm open. "It's okay," she whispered, her voice raw. He didn't move, didn't trust, couldn't. Another explosion rocked the compound. Dust rained from the ceiling. Shouts grew louder outside. She knelt, bringing herself level with him. Her silence softened, not the storm this time, but the depth beneath it. "I won't hurt you." The boy's lips parted, a breath, a whimper. Then slowly he reached toward her. She caught his hand, small and shaking, wrapping it in her own. For the first time in years, the silence inside her felt like something else. Not a weapon, not a shield, but a promise. Outside, the storm raged on. And she knew the cost of what she had just chosen. What would they say when they found her? The squad was counting on her overwatch, her silent scope keeping them alive. And instead, here she was, crouched in a crumbling stairwell, holding the fragile hand of a boy who shouldn't have been here. Her headset crackled, the commander's voice sharp. "Where the hell are you? Repeat, sniper, report." She pressed her back to the wall, heart hammering, dust clinging to sweat. She knew she had seconds before someone came looking. Seconds before the storm outside crashed down inside these walls. The boy clung to her sleeve, trembling. His wide eyes searched hers, desperate for something he couldn't name. Safety, trust, a mother. Her throat tightened. She hadn't been called that word in years. A soldier rounded the corner, one of her own. He froze at the sight of her, then at the boy. His face twisted in disbelief. "What the you left position for this?" Her jaw clenched. She didn't answer. Silence was her shield. He shook his head, muttering, "You've lost it." Then, louder into his radio, "Sniper's off task. She's got a civilian." The commander's voice thundered back instantly. "Negative, leave him. Get back in position now." Her silence cracked into words before she could stop herself. "He's just a child." The soldier blinked as if hearing her voice for the first time. She rarely spoke, and when she did, it wasn't with plea, it was with command. But now her tone carried something else, something human. "Orders are orders," he hissed, glancing nervously toward the stairs. "We don't have time for this." The boy gripped her tighter. She felt his pulse racing against her skin. Fragile, desperate, alive. Her mind replayed an image she could never erase. Another boy, years ago, lying still in the rubble while she was too far away to save him. The photo in her vest burned like fire against her chest. She whispered, more to herself than anyone, "Not again." The soldier's jaw worked. Conflict flickered in his eyes, but fear won. "You're risking all of us." He turned, storming back down the hall, muttering curses under his breath. The radio exploded with chaos. Gunfire outside, orders, screams, the ambush tightening around them like a noose. Her commander barked again. "Sniper, get your ass back on Overwatch before we're all dead." Her silence answered him. She scooped the boy into her arms. The child buried his face against her shoulder, trembling. She moved quickly, boots silent on cracked concrete, weaving through shadows deeper into the compound. Away from her post, away from orders. Every step tore her in two. Duty on one side, humanity on the other. But hadn't duty always been her excuse? A mask to hide behind, a way to numb what she had lost. A sudden blast shook the walls. The compound trembled, dust rained down. Somewhere someone screamed in pain. She pressed on, heart pounding. The boy whimpered, clinging tighter. "SHH," she whispered, "almost there." She didn't know where there was. She only knew she had to keep him alive. At the far end of the corridor, she found a small storage room, half collapsed, shadows thick. She set him down gently, crouching to his level. His eyes searched hers, still afraid. She pulled off her glove, revealing a scarred hand, and pressed it to his cheek. Warmth met warmth. Her voice was barely a breath. "Stay quiet, stay low, I'll come back." The boy shook his head, clutching her wrist. He didn't want her to leave. Her heart twisted. She wanted to promise him safety, wanted to promise she'd never leave again. But promises were dangerous things in places like this. The comms erupted again. "Sniper, report now." She forced herself to stand, prying his fingers gently from her sleeve. His wide eyes followed her, filled with a wordless plea. "I'll come back," she repeated, though she didn't know if it was true. Then she turned and left him in the shadows. Outside, the storm had worsened. Bullets screamed against the walls. The squad fired back, but they were outnumbered, outflanked. The compound was becoming a coffin. She climbed fast, finding another rooftop position, rifle snapping into place. The world narrowed again to breath, heartbeat, scope. Through the sights, she saw chaos, her comrades pinned, enemies advancing. The tall figure on the ridge still orchestrated it all, calm amidst the storm. Her chest tightened, the target, her mission, the reason she was here. She lined him up again. Inhale, exhale. The silence inside her sharpened into steel. Then she froze. A shape moved in her scope, not the target, the boy. He had followed her. He was outside now, exposed, stumbling into the open yard in confusion and fear, his small frame lit by the glow of gunfire. Her blood ran cold. Shouts erupted. Soldiers saw him. Enemies saw him. The commander's voice roared in her ear. "What the hell is going on down there?" She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. All she saw was the boy, caught between fire and death. And in that split second, she understood the storm inside her. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't rage. It was love, twisted, broken, buried, but alive. Her rifle shifted, leaving the target. She fired. Not at the man on the ridge, at the one aiming at the boy. The enemy fell. She fired again and again, carving a shield of bullets around the child. Her squad shouted in confusion. The commander cursed, but none of it mattered. She was no longer fighting the mission. She was fighting for him. The boy dropped to his knees, covering his head. She kept firing, each shot a vow, each echo a storm unleashed. And in that chaos, something broke inside her, not weakness, not failure, but a truth she had carried in silence for years. The photo in her vest, the face on it, her son. Not the boy in the yard, no, but close enough that every breath she took now belonged to him. The storm inside her had found its reason. And she knew, no matter what it cost, she wouldn't let this child be lost to silence. "Hold position, hold fire, we're getting chewed up out here." The commander's voice was raw, spitting fury into the radio. Gunfire hammered the night like a relentless drum. Smoke coiled from shattered walls, flames licking the compound's edges. And in the middle of it, the boy knelt in the open, trembling, clutching his head as if trying to shrink into the dirt. She kept firing, shots cracking like lightning. Every pull of the trigger a promise, not him, not again. Her commander's voice broke through again. "Sniper, what the hell are you doing? Get back on the target, he's on the ridge, take him." Her crosshairs swept back to the ridge. The tall figure still stood there, calm, untouchable in the chaos. Her mission was clear. The man was the reason for everything, every loss, every burial. But the boy was still exposed, his small frame a fragile silhouette against the fire. Her finger hovered on the trigger. Then, "Cover him," a soldier shouted, sprinting from the compound. Boots hammered dirt, bullets streaking past. He slid beside the boy, dragging him toward the wall. Shouts, curses, desperate fire all around. She exhaled, lowering her scope for a fraction of a second. Relief, sharp and painful. But the damage was done. Her commander's fury exploded over comms. "You disobeyed direct orders. You jeopardized this entire mission. Do you even understand what you've done?" Her silence pressed against her throat. She wanted to answer, to explain, but her words stuck like shards of glass. Instead, she whispered the only truth she knew. He's just a child. There was a pause. The comms went quiet. Even in chaos, that silence was heavy. Then the commander's voice returned, colder than before. You're compromised. Something in her chest broke. She shifted position, firing again to cover the soldier hauling the boy to safety. But inside, she knew, there was no coming back from this. The ridge erupted in gunfire. Enemies pressed harder, sensing weakness, pushing toward the compound in waves. Her rifle sang, precision cutting them down, but she could feel it, momentum slipping. They wouldn't hold much longer. The commander barked orders. Prepare fallback, call for evac now. Overlapping voices crackled, a medic screaming, someone calling for more ammo. The storm was swallowing them whole. She pulled back from her scope, chest heaving. Her hands trembled for the first time in years, not from fear, but from the storm breaking loose inside her. Then she heard it. Boots behind her. She turned. The commander stood in the half-light of the rooftop, his face streaked with dirt, his eyes burning with rage. He wasn't supposed to be up here. He should have been leading inside, but he had come for her. His voice cut like steel. You left your post, you broke protocol, you endangered us all. Her silence held. She met his eyes, calm, ocean deep. He stepped closer, fury barely contained. Do you have any idea what this mission means? That man on the ridge, if he slips away tonight, more of our people die, more blood on our hands. And you, he jabbed a finger toward her, you chose him. He didn't say child, he said it like a curse. Her jaw tightened. He's innocent. The words came out low, steady, sharper than a bullet. The commander stared at her, stunned. He wasn't used to hearing her voice. Not like this. Do you think innocence survives out here? His voice cracked, softer now. You think saving one boy changes anything? Tomorrow there'll be another, and another, until you can't carry them anymore. Her eyes didn't waver. Then I'll carry as many as I can. The storm in her voice silenced him for a moment. He looked at her differently, not as his sniper, not as his soldier, but as something else. Something broken, something human. Finally, his rage hardened again. You're off this mission. Hand me your rifle. Her chest seized. The rifle wasn't just a weapon. It was her silence, her shield, her burden. To give it up was to give up herself. Her fingers tightened around it. Down below, another explosion rocked the compound. Screams tore through the comms. The enemy was breaching. They didn't have time for this. She looked past the commander through the smoke, toward the boy crouched against the wall with the soldier shielding him. His small face turned, eyes wide, searching for her in the chaos. And she knew. She slowly lowered the rifle, not handing it over, not surrendering, but shifting her grip, pressing it close against her chest like the photo hidden beneath her vest. Her voice came low, firm. When this is over, I'll answer for it, but right now I'm not leaving him. The commander stared at her, fury and disbelief warring across his face. For a heartbeat, he seemed ready to rip the rifle from her hands. But then another shout rose over the radio. They're breaking through, north wall. The commander swore, spinning toward the ridge. His duty pulled him back into the fight. This isn't finished, he growled before storming off. She stayed on the rooftop, rifle ready again, silence filling the space he left. But inside she knew it was finished, at least for her. She had chosen her side. The boy's face haunted her scope as she fired into the night. Each shot no longer for mission, no longer for orders, but for him. And as the ridge burned with muzzle flashes, as enemies surged like waves, she felt something she hadn't felt in years, clarity. The photo in her vest wasn't just memory anymore. It was alive, breathing, fragile, trembling in the open. Her son was gone, but this boy was still here. And for him, she would burn the silence down. She woke before dawn, though no alarm had sounded. Her body knew the rhythm of anticipation. The outpost lay silent, wrapped in the hushed breath of desert air. Dusk clung to the window glass, and beyond it, the first traces of light pressed against the horizon, bruised purple and gold. Why couldn't she sleep? She rolled to her side, eyes fixed on the shadows moving across the ceiling. Memories lingered there, uninvited, her mother's voice, the last phone call before deployment, the promise she made to her brother's grave. I'll make it matter. I'll make it count. But promises were heavy things. The mission briefing replayed in her mind, every detail sharp, every word clipped, coordinates, infiltration routes, extraction windows. She had memorized them like scripture. Yet the room had grown quieter when she entered. Eyes had shifted, glances exchanged. They didn't doubt her skills, she was the best shot in her unit. No, they doubted something else, something harder to define. Maybe it was the silence she carried. She rarely spoke unless she had to. Words to her felt fragile, like glass you couldn't put back together once shattered. And so she listened, observed, learned. That silence unnerved people. It made her untouchable, unreadable. They called her the ghost when they thought she couldn't hear. She pulled on her boots, their leather creasing with familiar resistance, the weight grounding her. Outside her quarters, the air was cool. Gravel shifted beneath her steps, each crunch a reminder she was still here, still tethered to this earth. The sky deepened, stars thinning into the pale stretch of morning. She found him by the wire fence, Corporal Ray's, leaning against the metal mesh, cigarette between his fingers. He looked older than his years, his eyes carrying a tiredness she recognized. He nodded without turning his head, smoke curling around him. "Couldn't sleep either?" he asked. She shook her head. He smirked, half bitter. "Figures, night before ops is always like this, quiet enough to hear your own damn thoughts." He paused, flicking ash to the ground. "Mine won't shut up." She studied him. He was one of the few who spoke to her without suspicion, without trying to dig past her silence. Maybe he understood that silence wasn't emptiness. It was noise turned inward. Ray's exhaled slowly, his voice softer now. "You know, I had a daughter, she'd be 8 this year." His throat tightened, but he pressed on. "I keep thinking about her, if she'd even remember my face, or if she just knows me as some picture in a frame." The words hung in the air, raw, vulnerable. She wanted to answer, to offer something, comfort, acknowledgement, but the weight of silence pressed harder. So instead, she placed her hand gently on the wire, close to his. Not touching, not breaking that invisible line, but near enough for him to feel the intent. He glanced at her, and in that moment, the silence said what words could not. The morning grew brighter, light spilling over sand and stone. The camp stirred. Voices rose, orders barked, the clatter of weapons checked and rechecked. The rhythm of preparation filled the air, a symphony of nerves and steel. She cleaned her rifle piece by piece, each click echoing like a prayer. Her hands moved with precision, but her mind drifted. Faces she couldn't forget. A brother laughing on a porch, wind rustling through a summer field. Then the call that shattered it all. His unit never made it home. The flag folded too neatly. The silence in her mother's house louder than any war zone. It was why she was here, why she carried storms in her chest. The commander's voice cut through the camp. Time to move. The convoy rumbled forward, armored trucks kicking dust into the rising sun. She sat pressed between two soldiers, their helmets tilted low, eyes distant. No one spoke much. The air inside vibrated with tension. She closed her eyes, steadying her breath. The desert opened around them, vast, endless, unforgiving. She thought of the title they'd given her in whispers, the ghost. They didn't know how close it was to the truth. She was haunted and perhaps haunting. A silence wrapped tight around grief and fire. As the convoy neared the drop point, the radio crackled. Static. Then a clipped warning. The road ahead wasn't clear. Her grip tightened on her rifle. The vehicle slowed, dust swirling past armored glass. The world outside felt suddenly fragile, as if holding its breath. She leaned forward, scanning the horizon. Nothing, no movement, only silence. But silence, she knew, was never empty. Somewhere ahead, storms waited beneath the calm. The convoy stopped. Dust swirled through the open slats, hanging like smoke in the air. Every soldier in the back of the truck tensed, eyes darting toward the horizon. Fingers gripped rifles tighter. Nobody spoke. Why had the radio cut out? She leaned her cheek against the butt of her weapon, scanning through the scope. The desert stretched wide, shimmering heat, distant rocks, dunes rising like waves. Empty. Too empty. Her breath steadied into silence, each inhale measured, each exhale thin as thread. Then movement. A ripple on the ridgeline, not wind, not mirage, human. Her finger twitched against the trigger guard, but she didn't fire. Not yet. Her silence was patience. The commander's voice broke across comms, low and tense. All units dismount, spread. The air filled with the sound of boots hitting sand, gear clattering against armor. Her squad formed a staggered line, rifles trained outward, every soldier a fragment of focus in the vastness. She felt it, the heaviness pressing on the air, the storm beneath the calm. Ray's moved beside her, his jaw clenched. He muttered, "They're out there, waiting." His eyes darted toward her. "You see them?" She nodded once. "Figures," he whispered. "You always do." A crack split the silence. A single shot sharp as lightning. One of the men dropped. Shouts exploded. Then the world fractured, gunfire erupting from the ridge, bullets snapping through the air, striking sand, tearing into metal. She dropped low, her scope finding targets through the chaos. A figure appeared, shoulder rising above cover, muzzle flashing. She squeezed, breath still, silence absolute. The body folded, vanishing back into dust. But there were more, too many. Her squad scattered, shouts tangled in the storm of gunfire. She heard the commander's orders, Ray's curses, the rising panic of younger soldiers gasping for breath, trying to anchor themselves in the madness. She felt nothing, only calm. The ocean within her had learned to hold storms. Shots came faster now. Vehicles shredded under fire, tires rupturing, glass splintering. The desert roared with chaos, and yet inside her there was only stillness. She shifted position, crawling through the grit, sand grinding against her skin. The ridge loomed ahead. Enemy muzzle flashes cut the air in jagged bursts. She breathed. She fired. One fell, then another. But for every silence she delivered, another voice of violence answered back. Rays dragged a wounded soldier behind cover, blood soaking into the sand. His face twisted, not in fear but something worse. Recognition. That war was never balanced. "You good?" he shouted to her through the chaos. She only raised two fingers, affirmative. He nodded, trusting her wordless vow. Minutes blurred into something endless. Fire, reload, silence, fire again. Her shoulder ached, ears rang, sweat stung her eyes, but she stayed unmoved, the ghost among them. And then quiet. Not peace, not safety, but the gunfire thinned, enemies retreating back over the ridge. Dust hung heavy, acrid with the bite of gunpowder. Bodies lay still, some theirs, some ours. The silence afterward was the cruelest of all. The commander barked orders, voice hoarse. "Check casualties, secure perimeter." She lowered her rifle, her chest rising, falling. Around her the men moved, dragging the wounded, tending to the fallen. Ray's hands trembled as he pressed a bandage against a soldier's wound, blood leaking through his fingers. Her eyes locked on one of the fallen, a young private, barely 20, his helmet tilted away, his face almost peaceful, like someone dreaming of home. Her silence cracked inside. For a moment her storm surged, grief, anger, the weight of promises. She had sworn to herself she would carry them all, but each loss was another stone pulling her under. Rays looked at her then, his voice breaking. "We can't keep doing this, losing them like this, for what?" She didn't answer, couldn't. Her silence was both her shield and her prison. Instead, she crouched beside the private, closing his eyes with gentle fingers, a gesture she had done too many times. Her storm subsided, only calm remained. The commander's voice cut through. "We move now, we can't stay here." The squad gathered, ragged but alive, shadows of who they were an hour before. The convoy was crippled, half the trucks burned out, smoke curling skyward like accusations. They would move on foot. The desert stretched endless ahead of them. She shouldered her rifle, her silence steady once more. But deep inside, storms churned louder. Because she knew something the others didn't. There was more waiting. This was only the beginning. The march began under a punishing sun. Heat shimmered across the desert, waves of air-bending light turning the horizon into a mirage. Boots sank into sand with each step, the crunch of gravel swallowed by silence. Nobody wasted words. Breath was too precious, strength too fragile. How far could silence carry them? Her pack dug into her shoulders, the straps cutting deeper with every mile. Sweat traced paths down her back, disappearing into the fabric of her fatigues. The rifle was a constant weight in her hands, steady but unforgiving. Yet she felt lighter than most, because her silence carried her. It steadied her heartbeat, slowed her breath, reminded her why she walked when others stumbled. Ray's broke the quiet first. His voice was rough, cracked by dust. "You ever wonder if this desert just swallows people whole? Like, nobody dies here, they just disappear into the sand." A younger soldier, Miller, barely out of training, snorted bitterly. "Feels like it's trying to." No one laughed. She glanced at Ray's, catching the strain in his face. His lips were cracked, eyes squinting hard against the glare. He was pushing himself, carrying more than his own pack. He carried the wounded too, mentally, emotionally. His silence wasn't like hers. His broke him down from the inside. Hours passed. The squad stretched thinner, footsteps dragging. The desert offered nothing. No shade, no mercy, only the endless hum of heat pressing on their skin. When the commander finally called for a halt, the soldiers collapsed in place, drinking water in careful sips, rationing what little they had left. She sat apart from them, rifle resting across her knees, eyes on the ridgeline, always watching, always waiting. Silence wasn't absence, it was awareness, and she felt it again, the storm beneath the calm. Something was out there. Ray sat beside her, wiping sand from his face. He studied her for a moment. "You feel it too, don't you?" She didn't answer, but her stillness said enough. He sighed, voice low so the others couldn't hear. "You scare me sometimes, not because of what you do, because of what you don't say, like you know more than the rest of us, like you're already carrying our deaths before they happen." She turned to him then, her eyes steady, unflinching, and for the first time in days she spoke. Her voice was quiet, cracked but clear. "I carry my brothers." Ray's blinked, surprised by the sound of her words. She went on, each syllable heavy as stone. "He died in a place like this, ambushed. No one came back, just a folded flag. That's why I'm here, to finish what he started, to make sure silence means something." Ray's looked away, his jaw tight, emotions clawing at his expression. He whispered, "That's a hell of a weight." Her silence returned, not as retreat but as answer. The commander called them to move again. By dusk, the sky bled into hues of crimson and gold. Shadows stretched long over the sand, carrying with them a fragile promise of cooler air. The squad moved slower now, exhaustion etched into every step. But they pressed on, because there was no other choice. Then a sound. Distant, low, mechanical. Engines. They froze, dropping low, ears straining. The hum grew louder, vibrating through the earth, rattling gear, quickening heartbeats. Lights appeared on the horizon, bouncing across the dunes. Trucks, armed. Ambush. The commander hissed orders. Positions, conceal and wait. They scrambled, sliding into shallow depressions behind rocks, pressing their bodies into the earth as the roar of engines closed in. She lay flat, rifle cradled tight, cheek pressed against sand. Her heartbeat slowed, her breathing stilled. Silence cloaked her like armor. The convoy rolled closer, 3 trucks, armed gunners scanning the desert, searching, hunting. Her finger found the trigger, she steadied her aim, waited. Ray's whisper brushed her ear, "We can't take them head-on." She knew that wasn't the plan. The plan was patience, the plan was silence. One truck slowed, headlights sweeping across the dunes. A gunner pointed, shouting something in a tongue carried away by wind. Soldiers leapt from the back, boots slamming sand. It was happening again. Her breath caught not in fear but in memory. Her brother's unit, the ambush, the folded flag. But this time she was here. This time silence would answer. Her fingers squeezed. The first shot cracked the night, a thunder that shattered stillness. The gunner dropped, his body twisting, falling from the mounted weapon. Then chaos. The desert roared to life, shouts, gunfire, headlights cutting wild arcs through the dark. Her squad responded, rifles flashing, bullets slicing through the air. Sand erupted around her, grains stinging her face as she fired again and again. But it was never enough. For every enemy that fell, more rose. The trucks pushed forward, engines growling, tires grinding sand. The commander barked orders, voice ragged, desperate. Miller screamed, clutching his leg. Ray's cursed, dragging him back into cover, bullets snapping overhead. She remained still, ocean calm, storm within. She shifted her scope, breath even, eyes sharp. She found the driver, fired, glass shattered. The truck veered, tires skidding, metal shrieking as it rolled onto its side, throwing bodies across the sand. The others faltered, but pressed harder. And in that storm, silence became her weapon, each shot deliberate, each breath controlled, each life taken not for vengeance but for survival, for her squad, for her brother. The firefight stretched into eternity, until suddenly, quiet again. Engines sputtered, voices silenced. Only the crackle of fire from the wreckage remained, casting long shadows against the night. The squad emerged slowly, broken silhouettes against flames. Some limped, some carried the wounded, but they were alive. Ray's dropped beside her, chest heaving, sweat streaking his face. He stared at the burning truck, then at her. His voice was rough. "You saved us." She didn't answer, couldn't. The storm in her chest swelled, threatening to break. Instead, she looked at the horizon, dark, endless, unforgiving. Because she knew. This wasn't the end. The silence was only getting louder. Night pressed down heavy, the kind of night where stars looked sharp enough to cut. The desert stretched endless, a black ocean rippling with firelight from the wrecked convoy. Smoke coiled upward, glowing ember red, twisting into the sky as if carrying the names of the fallen. And still silence. But not peace, never peace. The squad moved slowly, shadows staggering through sand. They were fewer now. Each silhouette seemed smaller against the vast dark, their strength siphoned by distance, heat, and grief. She walked at the edge of the group, rifle across her chest, eyes fixed outward, watching, listening, waiting. Was this what her brother saw in his last moments? Ray's broke the quiet first. His voice was low, tired, but alive. "We're not making it out if we keep bleeding like this. You know that, right?" She didn't answer. He kept talking, maybe because silence scared him now. "You pulled us through, twice, but storms don't last forever." His words cracked, softer. "Neither do people." She looked at him, the fire reflecting in his eyes. He wanted something from her, not strategy, not reassurance, but meaning. And she had none to give, only silence. The commander called a halt. They gathered near a low ridge, the sand still warm beneath their knees. A half-circle of weary faces, lit by the ghost glow of burning wreckage behind them. Every soldier carried their own private silence, of what they'd lost, of what they feared. Miller, pale and shaking from his wound, whispered, "Why us? Why do we always end up being the ones left?" No one answered. The silence grew heavier. It wasn't absence, it was weight. She reached for her canteen, the last drops tasting of metal and dust. She closed her eyes, and for a fleeting second she wasn't in the desert. She was on a porch at home, fireflies dancing in the dark, her brother laughing, tossing her a baseball. He told her once, "Silence isn't weakness. It's strength that doesn't need to scream." Her chest ached. The commander's voice pulled her back. "We move at dawn. Navigation will be harder at night." He didn't say what they all knew, that dawn might never come for some of them. She stayed awake, sitting apart from the others, rifle balanced on her knees. The night hummed with distant winds, and then she heard it. Not wind, not imagination. Footsteps. She froze, head tilting, soft, measured, moving closer. Her silence became steel. She lowered to the sand, eyes scanning the dark. Shadows shifted against the ridge, figures too many. The storm was back. She whispered the only words she spoke that night, "Incoming." The squad jolted awake, scrambling, rifles snapping into hands. The night shattered, gunfire sparking, echoes tearing across dunes. Enemies swarmed the ridge, their shapes lit by muzzle flashes, their shouts drowning in the chaos. She moved like breath, calm, precise. Each shot fell into silence. Rays shouted, dragging Miller deeper into cover. The commander roared orders into the storm, but she heard none of it. Her world had narrowed to sightlines, angles, targets. Until she saw him. An enemy fighter had broken through, charging toward Rays and Miller, rifle raised. Rays was exposed, his hands full, his body shielding the wounded. She aimed, fired. The man fell inches from Ray's boots. Rays looked up at her, shock flickering across his face. Then gratitude, then something deeper. The battle burned on. Minutes felt like hours, but the squad held. Somehow, against numbers, exhaustion, and fear, they held. When the last shot faded into the desert, silence returned, heavier than before. Bodies lay scattered. The sand was dark with blood. The commander stood, shoulders slumped. "We can't stay here if more come." His voice broke off. He didn't need to finish. They moved again, limping, carrying, surviving. Step by step. Dawn crept slowly, bleeding pale light across the horizon. She walked at the front now, her silence leading them. Not because she was asked, not because she wanted to, but because the storm inside her left no other choice. Hours later, the outpost appeared, small, almost unreal, like a mirage. The sight pulled broken gasps of relief from the men. Some wept, some prayed. Rays simply stared, as if afraid it would vanish if he blinked. They stumbled through the gates. Medics rushed forward. The squad was pulled apart, wounded to stretchers, survivors to debrief. Noise swallowed them. Orders, questions, chaos. But she didn't hear any of it. She stood alone, rifle still in her hands, boots coated in dust and blood. Her silence wrapped her like a shroud. Rays limped to her side, his voice hoarse. "You carried us through hell." She looked at him, eyes unreadable. He shook his head. "I don't know how you do it. Stay that quiet, stay that strong." She finally spoke, her words a whisper meant only for him. "Because silence isn't empty. It's full of everything I've lost, everything I carry, everything I refuse to let break me." He stared at her, and for the first time he understood. She turned away then, walking toward the rising sun, her shadow long against the sand. Her silence wasn't weakness. It wasn't escape. It was the ocean within her, deep, endless, carrying storms beneath its calm. And sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts.